Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. We'll be doing some live chess games today. Uh, mm, let's start out on the slow side. 10 minute plus 5 per seconds per game. Oh, that feels good. This would be GoldenEye's DK mode. Extreme close up. That's from Wayne's World. And I made up extreme far away up. Extreme close up, far away up. Get it? Anyway, I can move this over a bit. And then move this a bit, a little bit more to that direction. That's fine. Yeah. Put that. Alright. Hey. Way to go, more gravity. A nice, accurate game. Break not too early. My opponent played accurately, or accurately enough. An honest to God, accurate win. Let's go over this game. Yeah, let's go over this game. Pretty much start to finish. I review most moves, not every move, but most moves. Queen's pawn opening. Some spoke to me about central pawn duo. Most often against this c6, which most often I play c4. But I had this inkling. How about trying something almost new? I mean, I've played this position before, but with e4 first, then the Caro-Kann, then the pawn duo by way of d4. So anyways, I played into this same position after playing a different move order in this game. And tried and true, the advance here is fine. Still book and all that. c5. It's strange to have used two pawn moves on the same pawn within the first three moves, but it's still accurate and correct as such. Trusting the book symbol, but also just you look at it, there's nothing wrong with this. Bishop to b5 check, and the block with the knight is good. Knight c3, a little bit of a miscue here from white. Let's see what we might have had otherwise. Best. No, that's a different move. Not best here. To capture the pawn. Alright. So while the knight is pinned to the king, d takes c5. We've got an extra pawn. What white does. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And see, black has some compensation for the pawn, but not quite enough. And the evaluation bar pretty much agrees with me. Part of the idea here is after e6, white can hold on with b4. The discovered attack against my c5 pawn is met with b4. The knight can't have any good say-so over it, or even the queen, because the queen will get gobbled up on a5 by the pawn, and the knight is, like we said, still pinned to his king. Now going against that a bit, going up against that a bit is the some of the dynamics. The other dynamics might be pretty good for black. White has the extra pawn, but eventually there may come a moment where e6 reveals an attack strong enough against c5. So anyway, that's that. I used to be able to delete moves like that. Like if I press this, what if I press this? I don't want this to be here. I want to be able to delete that from the... Anyway. Knight c3. Pawn takes d4. Queen takes d4, making use of the pin. It's an absolute pin. So white trudges on or motors on ahead with queen d4. Or queen takes d4 rather. E6 now. White's just gonna develop. Now that... So I want to say something about this move. With white to move here. Knight f3 is actually a fairly advanced move. It shows that not only do I know that my queen could become in peril, but that I can play knight f3 first before it becomes any kind of an issue. Bishop d7 is coming, or if queen a4. None of them are enough. My queen has enough time. She can skirt over to a4. She could go back to d8. There's actually a ton of squares on the chessboard for her to go. And after knight f3, she could always have the resource of queen to h4. So I'm not worried about it right now. The piece attacking my queen is in the middle of an absolute pin. Not only that, but he can be, I guess in order to be in a pin, you have to be able to be captured by your opponent. So he's also this knight on c6, he's also in a place where he can be captured with check. Isn't that kind of like the nature of a pin, or the definition almost? Anyway, so knight f3. I'm not scurrying my queen around and spending moves frivolously because she's not in any real danger whenever you calculate the relevant variations and lines and combinations. Now we have not a problem. Now we have a threat to answer. Now my queen is under attack in an immediate way. So I move her to g4. It's actually an awesome square, forcing black's dark squared bishop to pretty much babysit g7 until black figures out what's going on over there, to play g6 or in some way trade off or forced to move my queen, or whatever it is. Black has some serious issues in terms of a cramped position. Black's position is extremely cramped. White enjoys an extreme advantage in space on this chessboard. Mobility as well. White is crushing this board in terms of space and mobility. The evaluation bar doesn't agree with me, and there's probably some good reason for that. There might be a freeing move like knight f5. Doesn't look all that bad for black. The e-pawn can't boot the knight because he's on the 5th rank, and the g-pawn's a world away from it. That g-pawn would have to go through the queen. So first the queen move, then g4, and now aren't white's kingside pawns in a state of disorganization or even disarray? So, I would be looking at knight f5 here for black. Yeah, that on the one hand, and also knight g6, just blocking the attack on g7, and now this bishop is free to go to b4. to c5, and there aren't those two really nice squares for black's dark square bishop. Bishop g5. It's a good pin. This knight's pinned. It's not easy to shake out of this. There's f6. E takes f6. G takes f6. Bishop takes f6. That's 2 pawns for 1 already. The rook is now under attack. It's not clear how to even relieve that. In fact, white might be winning material here on the king side. And the knight on e7 is still pinned. I don't know, how could this be a bad move by white? Bishop to g5. Let's take a look. Now g6 makes a lot of sense here. I want to do f6. It's not even being suggested. So it must be better for white than I had realized. f6. Right? E takes f6. G takes f6. We calculated this. And now, if computer best... rook g8. I would probably take queen takes g8, but like the queen takes g8, queen h5 is also queen h5 check, and rook g6. No, yeah, it's a little more clear for me. Just grab the the exchange here. After knight takes g8 to recoup the queen, bishop takes d8, gets the queen back, and when black recaptures king or rook kind of makes more sense in some ways, so we'll say rook. Doesn't have to be, they're about equal. And white has a nice 3-point material lead. The evaluation bar indicates that there are dynamic factors beyond that in favor of white. I would say some of those include the ability to trade off some material at will here on the a4, e8 diagonal. Queenside castles looks like a lot of fun. Knight g5 in certain circumstances can attack e6 and definitely h7 at the same time, maybe a fork. If we busy black's bishop with recapturing on c6, then knight g5 might be able to follow up with one pawn or the other, and even knight e6 once the rook moves. Another forced trade of equal value material here on f8. White's doing really well. Alright, so back to there we go. Okay. Anyway, I played bishop g5 after g6, bishop f6, moves the rook. This is pretty cool. So the rook moves, there's no castle kingside, and still, look at this cramped position. I tell you, cramped position. I tell you, cramped position. It wouldn't have been so if it weren't for d5. It wouldn't have been so if it weren't for d5. I tell you, cramped position. I tell you, cramped position. It wouldn't have been so if it weren't for d5. d5, he played e5 first. d5, he played e5 first. Cramped position. Wouldn't have been so if it weren't for this cramped position. I played knight g5 just direct after the h7 pawn, and we know this pawn's also going to move to h5 or h6 I think white is really starting to hunt here. I mean, this knight's going to h7 in some variations with the trade of equal value material. This knight's going to there's certain ways that a sacrifice should be considered, at least a little bit, maybe not all so great, but you know, it wouldn't have been so if it weren't for this cramped position. Cramped position. Knight h7 guarantees a trade of equal value material for white, which is what we're looking for. Why am I looking for that? 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 Now the idea is material right now is equal. I actually shouldn't be looking for straight up trades of material. So we navigate. Bishop g7 is good, and now queen h4 pretty much presents certain threats. And you know, okay, we were talking about how cramped this position is. We were talking about all these pieces in a cluster, and white's so much more aggressive than black in this position. What happens when you continue to apply pressure against an opponent while keeping your own pieces safe? Eventually, in chess, they'll crack. There will be a mistake. You continue to apply pressure in a way that requires accurate response after accurate response after accurate response. Usually your opponent's going to end up making a mistake along the lines. They used to accuse Grandmaster Mikhail Tal of being a magician, because his opponents had a way of blundering against him. It was usually because he was ratcheting up more and more pressure. I'm no Mikhail Tal. Not yet. I'm no Mikhail Tal. But sometimes I'll play a game with that idea, and then of course knight f5 is one of those I'm sure my opponent wants back. It takes a little bit of thinking, and someone will come to it. Capture the queen, double back to capture the piece that captured my queen. Revenge is oh so sweet for this white dark squared bishop on h4. You're not part of the thought process. It doesn't put black ahead of queen or white ahead of queen. It's the queen's actually offset, and it's having the extra piece, I pray you, that puts white on the way towards winning. And the knight's gonna have an extra piece, and it's reflected, of course, with the material tally and also with the evaluation bar. Considerations when you're calculating would be, what about this knight? We're a little bit worried about him. He'll be all right, because he'll move to f6 with check if black captures on e5. But it looks like now the pawn support's not there. What do I do? And it's okay because of the bishop protecting the knight nearby, and things just about work out quite right for white in this particular tactical situation. I found some sort of resource here. F4 is a good move. It's the best move. It's not the only move that wins for white. Knight f6 check forces the trade of material, or just about, because if he doesn't, then I'll get more material on g8. So forces in the trade of material are better, But f4 is also good. Have material force come over here. And sometimes positional collapse, things just start to fall in white's favor in the rest of this game. B takes c3. We're now, this pawn is just sitting here like a bump on b2. Now controls b4 and d4, and the knight's not getting aggressive anytime soon because of it, and because of his friend and because of the pawn's friend on f4, how he covers e5. This knight's not going anywhere soon. So it's a positional collapse. Some sort of tension breaks in the favor of one side, and then it seems like all the other dominoes sort of fall in that same side's favor. Here, the check. We know this is going to get at least the bishop. King f8 loses a full piece with check. Just positional collapse. So king to d8 does a couple of things. First, moves somewhere other than f8, and second of all, makes the fact that the king is moving into a discovered attack just slightly less obvious. Really here all the way into the human factor. Hats off to you, sir. The king here in this with king to move, or with black to move, king e7 is probably just about right under the computer. It's just about the same. The problem is, against a human opponent like me, another human player like the one controlling e8 doesn't want to make it obvious that there's a discovered attack to be accounted for. I don't know. It might be slightly tactically better anyway, but it's cute. You stay on the back rank. It's not quite as obvious that the king's on the same diagonal as my h4 bishop. And why would that be? Break from routine disrupts automaticity. Capture a pawn. I spied it anyway. I spotted it anyway. A pawn takes d5 check, and the king moves, and just gonna simplify down to fewer and fewer pieces on the board. My opponent's trying to disrupt whatever there is, make calculations change in an extreme way, and when it comes down to eventually, I am eventually gonna capture this bishop. But who noticed that white always had the bishop capture or better throughout this entire, pretty much after b takes c, not quite, after knight to f6 check, right? This bishop, white always has the capture of the bishop or better. I'm not going to go too far into it. That was part of how I was playing, was to make sure that the capture of the bishop or better was available at each and every turn. Even here, blocked, still being threatened. Only way to move, and that square is covered as well. All right, and in the direction of c8, also blocked. Still, bishop to e8, attacked, and twice, blocked, and blocked. King b7. I suppose I might have continued with that idea. Yeah, no, white could continue with the idea. I chose instead to capture. I thought that I'd be fine with the pawn on f7. I believe was enough extra light treasure to worth swapping bishops, because I get the minor piece trade, and then rook to d7 check will net this pawn on f7, and white has 5 extra points of material. Things are going very well. And now, I like here my opponent doesn't give up. Settling threats. This is the perfect spot for black's b2 rook. Perfect. Yeah, I know that c2's already guarded, but a2 is not, for starters, and for second, who knows what might distract my rook at f2 away from this duty of guarding c2, or just my opponent not giving up and continuing to find active moves, pushing the king closer towards activity in the center of the board, maybe eyeing an eventual attack against c3, while also moving out of the way of the pawn at a7, who has 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves to queen with check. Big if. White doesn't do anything about it. I will. When this pawn becomes active, you'll see I do something about it. But it's just really awesome and active moves, even while down a piece and a pawn.